Welcome, everybody. We are live, and I am so excited about this show. I've convinced my real life emergency room medical doctor, Tim Peck, to come on because I am obsessed with the hit show, The Pitt. I know I'm a little late. It came out like a year ago, and I have so many questions. I want to know what is real from The Pitt, what is fake. I have heard from medical people that this is the most realistic medical drama on TV ever. And I happen to agree. I'm obsessed with it. Noah Wiley's on it, the guy from ER, Dr. Carter. He was all young then in ER, and now he's all seasoned, and he's like the chief resident medical doctor at the ER, which Dr. Tim has been before. So I am so excited. The first half of this episode, we're going to compare the show. The second half, we're going to talk about some trauma. You don't have to have watched The Pitt to enjoy the show, but if you want to watch it, pause, go watch The Pitt, come back in a week or a couple days. There's 15 episodes. It's on HBO. But you don't have to have watched it to understand the show. Tim has not watched it because that's sort of traumatic for him. He's like, no, thanks. Don't need to watch work while I'm home. And so it's going to be so funny. I keep like randomly asking him questions and he just doesn't have time. And I'm like, let's do a whole show about it. And then in The Pitt, spoiler alert, the last few episodes, there's like a real life, mass shooting. Well, not real life, but they're in the show. There's a mass shooting at the Pitt Fest, a music festival. And we're going to talk in the second half of the show about Dr. Tim's real trauma when he was chief medical resident at the Harvard Medical School in Boston, right? The day of the Boston Marathon bombing. So he's had real trauma. So first half, compare the show. Second half, let's get Dr. Tim's real story, which he's told me once before. It's very powerful and moving and sad. And then we're going to end it with, how do these first responders, how do you, Tim, handle the trauma of your job? And we are dedicating this show to first responders. Yesterday was First Responders Day. You all are the real heroes. Thank you to everybody that's on the front lines in an emergency. Tim, how are you? That was a long intro. How are you, my friend?
I am great, and I am an emergency physician, and we can talk about what even that means. A lot of people, perceive like, what is it to be this type of physician, and yeah, I treated a lot of people who've been in very dire straits, and as you said, was in Boston as chief resident for the Boston Marathon bombings, which we treated 23 people, saved all of their lives. A lot of people lost limbs and organs and eyes and things like that. But that was a pretty crazy experience where I learned a lot about myself, about others, about medicine, and the system of medicine and how it works. So, and when it's tested to its edge, you learn a lot about people and systems. But that was a very proud day. And then, yeah, I mean, right now I'm working in a community emergency department. That means there's called academic emergency departments. Community emergency departments are different things. Academic is the one where it's associated with the university. So all of the doctors there usually have faculty appointments. They're part of the medical school, and the medicine there, is usually more cutting edge, on the edge of like what's going on, studying things, testing new things. Whereas community medicine is taking care of people in the community, being there for them, using the most up-to-date information that's out there to take care of them. But you're not like sending them to some super specialist within your hospital kind of thing.
Right.
So most of my career has been on the academic side, on the when you hear academic, you think like books and
Right.
bench tops and science. Like, no, academic means in this world means like in the hospital. That is a hospital associated with the university. So most of it has been that, and now I've been doing a lot of community medicine.
Yeah. And you've liked going back to work. You've talked to me about this before, just being around people, being able to help them. You're trying to help politically, which is, I would say, so hard. But to just actually go in there and quickly help someone feels good, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
I think what feels good even more is that that I'm not doing it quickly right now in this job I'm in. So I'm in a community emergency department, a standalone emergency department. This is a newer concept in medicine. It's because we have a shortage of hospitals in rural America. Because of the way the healthcare system works, we can't afford them. We can't support them with people who are uninsured or underinsured, and so they close. And here where I live in Charlestown, is the local hospital is closed, and it's been closed for a while. There's no way it's opening anytime soon. And so what's happened is my group works in a hospital, in a standalone emergency department that has everything an emergency department has: CAT scan, MRI, ultrasound, etc. Has emergency doctors, has nurses that are trained in emergency. So they're emergency nurses that work in other emergency departments. But when we need to admit you to the hospital, we transfer you somewhere else. Right.
Right. Right.
And that's the difference of what we do. And that's because, it's much less expensive to have just the emergency department than it is
To have a whole hospital.
to have a whole hospital, and therefore it can support itself. So
You already are going into some of the issues from the show, The Pitt.
really, and
Yeah.
again, I know nothing about the
Yeah.
Pitt.
So, and I think a lot of the
Yeah.
viewers probably, some of them have probably seen The Pitt, some of them haven't.
Yeah.
The second season is coming out, I heard, in January. So I'm super excited about it.
Yeah.
So just to explain the cool concept of The Pitt, which is different from other shows like ER and stuff, is this is a 15-hour day, which is longer than a typical shift's like 12 hours, right?
Typical shift's 12 hours, but usually, you're there before you're there finishing up. So
Right. So it'd be a
13,
little longer.
13, 14 hours is pretty typical.
Okay. 13, 14 hours at the hospital. That makes sense. Okay. So it starts with the main character, Noah Wiley, the chief medical resident, um, the senior resident, or Noah Wiley, who's Dr. Robbie. It's his character is Michael Rabinowitz, and they call him Dr. Robbie. He's walking into the hospital, and it shows hour one. And so episode 1 is hour 1, episode 2 is hour 2, and it goes 15 hours. So you see their whole day, which I told you, spoiler alert, there's a mass shooting that happens that makes their shift go longer, and they call in every doctor nearby, every nurse, everybody that can help when that happens. So it also doesn't have any music. So there's no, like, when they're operating, when they're trying to save a patient, there's no dramatic music letting you know whether this is a hopeful situation or a sad situation. You're just watching, and you're listening to the beeping, and you're listening to the codes, and you're seeing everybody work. It's also in Pittsburgh, and it's in a fictional hospital that is very busy. And because of the problems that are real in the healthcare system, the people in the waiting room are waiting like anywhere from a few hours to all day to 12, 15 hours, because they're taking the patients that are most critical first. So some people are just stuck. So part of the show is the waiting room and how busy it is. And then he's kind of battling with the person in charge of the hospital that comes down every once in a while and says, you need to see people faster. You need to make patient satisfaction higher. They're not happy. And then
Oh,
he's
that's like
like,
his real life. Wow,
yeah,
this is
yeah.
amazing.
And he says, well, the
That.
reason they're not happy is because we don't have enough. We have people stuck here in the ER that need to go to the hospital, and you have closed floors because we don't have enough nurses, and we don't have enough nurses because we're not paying them enough, because of the healthcare system is broken. And they break down all the problems about why, and she kind of blows it off every time and sits it on him. And it's very obvious as you're watching the show, it's not the ER people's fault. It's not the ambulance work. It's there's too many people, and there's not enough beds in that ER. And you see the trauma that these workers, the nurses, everybody's facing, because the problem never goes away. There's always way too many people in that waiting room. Is this resonating with you at all?
I mean, this is great. I haven't seen the show because going home to watch work doesn't sound exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
But maybe I will, because what you're talking about is really getting into the reality of this job. It is, you are at the front and center of the brokenness of the healthcare system and the abandonment that people feel, whether they are patients or they are workers within that healthcare system. It feels Like, you do not have the support, you do not have the understanding of politicians and the public, therefore the public, because politicians aren't teaching them about what you need to actually take care of America. And one of the hugest problems is nursing shortage in America. We're about 20% nurses down that we need.
Wow.
It gets worse every day because of the, people. There's a million people becoming 65 every year right now. It's, and our population is aging. And then we just don't have the resources necessarily to, we don't have the resources, yes, in the system that we have, but we also have a terrible way of paying for healthcare that makes exactly what you're talking about. You have administrators saying, you have to see more patients, you have to go faster,
And do better because they're not happy with their results.
and your patient satisfaction has to be higher, right? So you have to do less faster with higher patient satisfaction, which is impossible.
So yeah, so he
And
tries to like have a meeting with all the staff and he tries to explain what to do and they're just like this is impossible and he's like well we have to do it as best you can, let's go, we don't even have time for this conversation, you know.
yeah, and so that has to do with, and we've talked about this so many times, and let me just do it for a moment, which is called fee for service, and the way healthcare is paid in America, where you're paid by click, right? By click, like on an app, where every time you see a patient, you get paid. And so the
Oh,
hospital gets paid. And so the more clicks you can get, click, 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 the more you can get paid. So you got to go fast, got to go fast, got to go fast to move people through, so that and the hospital's telling you got to do that. If you had a way that it slowed down so that patient satisfaction, outcomes, the quality of what you're doing was the important thing, well, then you'd be able to invest more in the people of medicine, the people that are doing the work, to slow down and
right.
give people the quality care that they need, right? And there's some, yeah. So that's just
There's one doc. So the show's fascinating. The show starts and it's a lot of people's first day on the job. So it's the student doctors. They're not quite doctors. It's their first day. And you don't know what to think of them. And they're very new. And you end up loving all of them. You end up loving every person on the job. They're all not perfect. They're all really trying their best. And how do they handle what they see? There's a new doctor that just came from a few months at a veterans hospital that's pretty new, but she's an actual doctor. Then there's the student doctors. Then there's the doctors underseen under Dr. Robbie. And one of them, you see a student doctor suspicious the whole time that maybe he's taking pain meds and stealing them throughout the day. And
mm,
like, how do they handle that situation? It's
right.
it's really interesting.
I
Oh,
mean,
we're
they
talking about The
probably,
Pit, everybody that just joined. We're talking about the show The Pit that I'm obsessed with. Tim has not seen, but Tim's real job is like that. Um,
you're
oh,
talking about every like major issue within emergency medicine that is talked about all happening in one day. So this is pretty
that's what's happening. It's every major issue happening today in 2025 on this show in a 15-hour time period.
right.
And it's fascinating.
And honestly,
And
every single one of those issues happens every day. And there's struggles with that, or in various ways. I mean, I'm sure that it makes each one of these really big, and across the show. But yeah, we have to think about all of this stuff every day.
something that was so much better to me, I watched some of ER when I was little. It was a huge hit show,
Yeah,
but not like all of the seasons
I
and stuff.
loved it when I was little. I love that
It
show.
probably helped influence
Yeah,
your decision to do what you're doing, honestly,
for sure.
because that's what the actor Noah Wiley, who I've listened to some podcasts with, that's what he said. He gets a lot of people saying, "I became a nurse, I became a doctor because of ER," and then like telling them what's real and what's not about ER, and it kind of helped him decide to help create this show. And he like writes some of the episodes too, and he was real big on creating it. He's executive producer and stuff, so it's really cool. But one of the characters, Dr. Mohan, she's a younger doctor, but she's a full doctor. She wants to take more time with her patients. And you see that she gives better care because she's spending more time and she like wants to get to know them and know a little bit about their lives. And sometimes that ends up saving their lives because she picks up things that the other doctors aren't seeing because they're too fast, but she's getting reprimanded throughout the day for being too slow. So I bet you can identify with that.
Yeah,
There's a
I think like my patient satisfaction scores are always the best in the group, if not one of the best in the group. Each quarter that where we get done across all the jobs that I've had. Also, my speed of seeing patients is usually in the lower quarter, somewhere around
Yeah,
the
knowing you,
30th.
you wanna get the right diagnoses.
Yeah.
You wanna solve this patient at that
Not just
time.
about diagnoses. Let me correct that. It's not just about diagnoses, and that's not what medicine is all about. It's about having the correct diagnosis. Yet, yes, but then empowering that patient's family to be able to manage it. If you just have someone who has a new diagnosis of like early emphysema called COPD,
Like something that's gonna change your life.
something that's going to change your life that you can actually reverse at that point or
Hmm.
make it so that it doesn't progress, you need to stop smoking today. And if I have the time to be able to talk to them about them, not reprimanded for it, but say, I always say to them, we talk about it, that, when you give them this new diagnosis, it's a wake up moment. And I say a couple things. One, do you want to have one more cigarette or no cigarettes? Those are your choices. So I need you to decide right now, when you leave this emergency department, you're going to want a cigarette. And so you need to decide now, does that mean you're going to throw your pack out and have none? Or you want to have that last cigarette before you never have another one? Like decide this moment before you go. And that really helps people like understand what it's going to be like and actually visualize what's going to be like on that next step.
And you have such few minutes, so you're figuring out the best effective thing to say at that moment to help them live longer, better lives.
And then the other thing is like, who's going to hold you accountable? Who is the person that will miss you the most if you
Ooh,
don't?
that's good.
Or as well as who's the person that's going to have to take care of you when you can't take care of yourself because of this?
This is so amazing because this is what the show is like, Tim. In the
Mhm.
show, there's like they see a patient and they realize she's like a sex worker or like not I think it's sex trafficking and
Mhm.
they only have few interactions and the boss, the woman that's like trafficking her is with her at all times. So they only have like a few moments away from her and they're like, what can they do? They give her a pin and you unscrew it and there's a number in it. They tell her like the best thing they try to get her to see somebody away from like the social worker away from the woman but she won't do it and they're just heartbroken and they're so it's like and they're working together like two of them are working together to try to help her and it's very much what you're saying you only got a few minutes with them what can you do to make their lives better it's fascinating to me.
Yeah. It's and over time kind of hone and figure out what works, what doesn't. Like that one cigarette thing is not something I had earlier in my career. It's something that eventually
Right.
um a patient said to me, like, am I gonna have one more cigarette or not? Like they
And
were
it made
thinking,
you think of it, oh good thing to do it, yeah.
yeah. And then you notice it's like that moment where it really wakes someone up because you're bringing them to a decision that they're gonna make when I'm not around. And I'm helping them make that decision right now, right? And so that's the thing is like you prescribe medicines, 50% of people don't even fill those prescriptions, right? In medicine, it's like around that number. You do these things and you say you got to do these things. People don't do it either because they're not educated by me. I didn't give them the instructions, or the nurses didn't give the right instructions or enough instructions for them to do it, or they don't have the resources or the transportation to get to that the visit they need to get to, or they call the radiology department they need a MRI from, and it's busy for 3 months, and they're just like, I'm not going to do it. Or they, 3 months, and then something happens in their lives. Like life gets in the way of medicine actually working. My job is to not only start that path toward health, but help people figure out a little bit in advance what they'll do when they hit the road bumps, because the healthcare system in America is full of road bumps. And it's
Yes.
not just health, it's our social determinants of health, the social things in our life, our transportation issues, our food scarcity issues. We're about to not have SNAP. That is going to make my job crazy for
That
people
is
when
terrifying.
they cannot get the food and they need, especially people with congestive heart failure that have salt restrictions and have to figure out how to do that right. If they can't afford the right foods, they are going to be back in my hospital over and over and over
You're
again.
gonna see more people because this is the place that everybody has to go to in a health
One of
emergency.
the most expensive things American could do is cut SNAP. It's insane and stupid. It's
Yeah.
it's It's
And it's inhumane. It's inhumane. Um, yeah,
it's certainly inhumane, but you
I'm
know,
watching my friends that run programs that help the unhoused, that feed them, give them warm clothing, give them necessary items. They are all saying, "We need more. We need more. We're gonna have really soon. We're gonna have more need. More people are gonna need help." And I'm feeling it inside. Like it's been hard once I knew this was happening. And I just want to give my love to everybody that's helping with this problem and give love to those that are it's going to happen to them. I'm seeing my friends on Facebook say, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I've seen it to two of my friends that I love posted that. And my husband are like, how much can we give? How much can we afford to give our friends? It's only going to help for a few days. Food's expensive too, like this is terrifying. But anyway, we'll talk more about that on Monday. Um, and then it's just really interesting what you're saying because it's definitely the show did a good job. The show did a good job explaining situations. There's one situation where a black woman comes in and she's saying she needs a huge amount of pain medicine, and people are thinking she is addicted to drugs, but
yeah,
actually she has sickle cell anemia.
sickle cell. I knew you were going to say she had sickle cell.
And,
Yeah.
the
Hold on.
Mohan
I'm
Dr. Mohan knew it because she pays more attention to details. So she catches it and she educates everybody. And I thought that was fascinating. Have you had patients with sickle cell? Because that sounds really awful. Oh no, did I lose you? Tim, you've frozen. Can you hear me?
no, I put on the chat that I had to go on to a different a band. We just had a storm come through, and so I'm
Oh,
on a
weird.
different band right now. So we're yeah, no, that's fine. But no, I knew you were going to say sickle cell before you started. Black woman coming in. I just had a sickle cell patient come in. This is a real issue that people do not trust. So sickle cell anemia is something that affects preferentially people who are African American as
Oh,
well
I didn't
as
know that.
as well as Southeast Asian. There's a type of anemia as well, and what happens is you get your red blood cells sickle. Normally, they're nice and plump and circular, and they can slip through your blood vessels just fine. When they sickle, they get caught in your blood vessels and in the smallest part of your blood vessels, your capillaries. And so they get caught in different places in your body, and it causes extreme pain. And one of the common things that happens is your spleen gets just all jammed up with blood cells, and you have to get your spleen out. Another thing is that your joints get individual joints. Someone might have their TMJ joint just inflamed and hurting like hell because it's just stuck there. But also think of where else blood vessels come. It causes strokes in people and kids. It causes paralysis in the
Do
spinal.
people not live as long that have it?
People definitely lifespan has decreased, but also quality of life is
It
terrible.
looked awful. I felt so bad, and I was like, "I boy, I'm not aware of this, and this just sounds like pure hell for anybody that has that."
And you know, regular medicines, Tylenol, ibuprofen, and ibuprofen actually has some things that why you shouldn't give it, and SEDS in general. So these medications are not just going to touch it. It is extremely painful, and so we have a problem in America. This is not a woke thing to say that I'm about to say. This is studied and known by Republican doctors and Democratic doctors, and we all know it because the literature says it, and we also lived it as an experience. And if anyone calls me woke from it, like, you're going to hear it from me. What the issue is here is that Black people don't get medicines, women don't get pain medicines at the same rate as men because doctors have a bias toward those people of thinking about do they need the medicine. And what happened, and it's shown over and over. What's also shown is that doctors don't give women pain medicines as much as they give men pain medicines. It's been shown that Black doctors do not give Black men or women, give Black people the same amount of medicines as they give white people. They give more pain medicines to white people. There is a bias toward giving white men essentially more pain medications. Nothing woke about
Well,
that.
I mean, it makes sense in life when we talk about the two of us, which one's believed quicker when we're saying the same information. But I watched a documentary about Serena Williams, and she almost died giving birth. And they didn't believe her. They didn't believe her. The medical staff didn't believe her that she's saying she's in pain, something's wrong. And because she's a very strong person, she demanded. She goes, "No, give me the whatever EKG or whatever study she was saying she had to have." And
This is the sickle
because
cell person. Well, this is very
no,
common.
no, Serena
Oh,
Williams just in
it's
childbirth. She
Serena
wasn't
Williams.
being believed about her pain. And
Got it.
so she demanded she get testing. And so they did it because she's Serena Williams, one of the best tennis players in the world. And then they found a problem. She was not lying. And then they had to rush her into like surgery and save her life.
A really
And so
common thing here is pelvic pain. Women coming in with pelvic pain, men and women, but mostly men physicians, just not understanding what that means and that there can be a ton of different issues. One of them is called pelvic. Basically, the veins in your pelvis get kind of engorged with blood, with too much blood, and this can happen to anybody who has had children before. And so it doesn't often get picked up on CAT scan. And so, when you're imaging people and you're just like, oh, this woman's not, doesn't really have that much pain, and it's terribly painful. And then if you go surgically, you see, oh boy, or do the right test, you can see it. Another thing is called endometriosis, which is when you have the inside lining of your uterus where, I have to educate men about this, usually the husbands, et cetera, of what that even means. That when you have, your cycle, the inside lining of your uterus gets very full with blood and tissue. And then when you have your period, you lose that. And it kind of, what the word is, it slops off. In endometriosis, you have these little patches of that tissue in your abdomen or on your intestines. And so you're having this like period pains.
it's just so incredibly painful because I've
On
had friends that have this and their pain is off
right.
of the charts.
And you
Yeah.
can't see it on a CAT scan. Even an MRI is pretty bad. It's pretty not great. It's diagnostic when you like put a camera inside someone to take a look, and then you find all of it. So super, super painful. So, and I'm part of this bias. I think, okay, there's nothing on the imaging that I saw. Must not be anything. That's the first thought you have. And then you have to say, no, wait, it might be something that I can't see right now. I need to treat this person with respect. I need to give
And
them
then you also have are they faking pain to get pain meds? Because that is also a real problem, addiction to pain meds. So I get why there's some fault thing. I want to talk about that with the show because the show does it really well. And I bet it's like this with you.
Mhm.
It was so beautiful. So you know how in our culture, if we like point out somebody's like mistake that they could fix, people take it personally and then they're like, stop talking to you or you get in a fight. In this show, The Pit, since it's literally life or death, they will effectively say, I think you used bias here. You didn't see this and this thing
Yep.
because she
That's
was
the
overweight. Maybe you missed it. And then they'll go, and you'll see, and you're like, oh, she's going to get mad. That doctor's going to get mad. And the doctor will go, huh, I didn't think of that. Okay, I will think of that next time. And they
so
like process it and try. Is that something you're seeing in the
that
medical
is
world?
the culture of medicine that you're taught. Just like any organization, the hospital that you're in, the physician group, the nurses that you work with, and their leadership has to encourage that and be there. I've worked at great places that have that culture. I've been in part of teams that don't have that culture too much, and they find insult in that. And that's also, one of the great places of this, and I'm sure the show talks about this or shows it, is when there's a code. There's something called call and counter call. I'm when there's a code, I'm not always touching the patient. I'm at the foot of the bed, kind of orchestrating a whole bunch of different people doing different things.
Oh yeah, we see that. Dr. Robbie does that.
And you kind of sit there like this or whatever, and you're asking for this. And the things that you're saying and the way that you're saying are so forward that in any other situation, you'd be like, that guy's a believe, right? But it's not. So you say that, and then you're like, push this medicine. And the nurses will say, pushing this medicine, this amount right now. And then maybe they'll say a different amount that I was thinking and be like, stop right now. Not that much, this much. They'll be like, got it. changing to this much, now pushing this medicine. Like you're just constantly talking
Yeah.
about.
And
But
that's
the
why there's no music. You're hearing everything on the show. So you're hearing tons of that stuff.
but the reverse happens. Maybe I'll say, push adenosine for this thing, and then a nurse will be like, "Don't you mean atropine, doctor?" And you're like, "Oh yes, actually, you're right.
So
Thank
they
you."
catch the mistakes. Boy, that's important. Yeah, you
Right?
don't want to give them the wrong medicine.
Because it's so high stress. There's so much going on. There's so many algorithms going in your head, and maybe you said a medicine that was, like I said, very similar in name, and you got. It's not that necessarily get confused. You and I do this every day, 16 times a day, where you say a different word than what you're thinking, right? You need this call and counter call, check, and humility. And then when things slow down, like you're talking about, you have a patient, they were obese and whatever, and you had a bias toward it, you also have this culture of saying, "Oh, what is your bias right now? What do you think? What are you not catching right now because you're biased?" And so that culture is something medicine tries to teach, but it's really the organization that you're working for needs to encourage it.
So this show really helped me understand you. I thought that was really fun for me because you talk in a very direct and, in my opinion, extremely mentally healthy way. You handle problems in a healthy way and very quick and effective. And I saw how they did it on the show, which is exactly what you just said. And I'm like, oh, that's one of the reasons why you're so good at communicating and getting stuff done, seeing the problems, trying to fix them, and then not everybody else in our world handles that the way that they're handling on the show or a good work environment.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. And sometimes you and I are like, "Ugh, if only they wouldn't take this personally. We're just trying to save Indiana and the country. That's all. If we could just move a little faster here, you know, and it's
No, I
like
mean, humanity is humanity, and you have it's a you have I've talked about you have the reptilian brain and the human mammalian brain and the human brain, right? The reptilian brain is this thing that gives you flight or fight and react
your anger, and you're gonna hurt them, say
and
something mean back.
anxiety,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what's there. And then what we're blessed with is a brain as well that can tell that quiet, I need to make a decision right now. And that part needs to overcome the first part. And so part of what we do in medicine is we're taught to listen to, oh, you're having a reptilian type response right now, right? And you need to tap into this, slow things down so you can tap into this.
But then you're also told to go as fast as you can and see as many patients so they can make as much money and get them in and out.
Slow to go fast. It's called slow to go fast. And
Yeah.
anyone who ever worked with me outside of the emergency department, I use that term all the time. Of
Yeah.
sometimes, and that comes with constituents and with conversations. You've seen me do it. You do it nicely, where you talk to someone and they're saying something that is incorrect. Maybe they're quoting a number incorrectly, or they're saying something left or right that they heard from their social media that is just wrong. Instead of getting reptilian and telling them that they're stupid or that you don't like them, you have to slow down, say, tell me more about that, understand where how did you
And
come
be
up
like, where did you get that information? Because I think that info might be incorrect. I think it might be this and this thing. Let's
with it?
talk about it. Yeah. And don't like tell them they're wrong and they're stupid, but like talk about where they got that info.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong is also a large part of it in the emergency department is
Yeah, and sometimes the doctor says something and one of the student doctors has an idea, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. And
students are
it's
amazing. Students are
yeah,
amazing.
is there
They're
enough
on top of it. And
like yeah,
they're
is
learning.
there less ego to be like maybe they're right? And most of the time on the show, they handle it correctly. Sometimes there's a little pushback, but the person that thinks they're right doesn't need to stop. It's like is a healthy enough environment that they all feel comfortable to try to save this life. The other thing that you're talking about is with the waiting room. So the waiting room is a character in the show. The people, you'll see the same people in the waiting room for multiple episodes since it's an hour at a time in a row, and
That's them.
some of them are not acting appropriately. You know, all of the medical staff, the nurses, the security, the janitors, they're all acting appropriately. And then the people in the waiting room are losing losing their mind, some of them. Like there's a fight that erupts one time, and then they have to take care of the people because they punched someone and the person swallowed the tooth. And like, do you have that? Has that happened where you have interactions with the people coming in?
Yeah, and there's also an epidemic of violence toward emergency workers and hospital workers in general. I don't know if they go through that, but
Yep, that's in the show as well. Yep.
yeah, it's a real epidemic. We hear a lot about it in stewards and stewardesses on planes, flight attendants on planes. Um, we hear about a lot about that in the news happening. It's kind of a
Just a lack of respect. We hear it in the teacher world. Since I'm a former teacher, a lot of teachers are getting disrespect because of the false content that's being pumped out about medical workers, about everybody. They come in with this knowledge that you're going to be an awful
I,
person.
I I'll I'll I don't see it. Yes, that could be part of it. I also see that when people are stressed, they make bad decisions,
Oh yeah, that's such a good point. You're so right.
and
And
so
if you feel like you don't know the information, like the person is talking to you and you're like they think they're so much smarter than you, like you feel a little
right.
threatened, I guess maybe too.
So the best way you're taught in de-escalation techniques, and de-escalation is needed a lot. Some people are just so mad. You walk into the room and they are arms crossed, looking at you like you're evil, and you just have to be calm and slow with them and get down to what they are. And eventually, you get to the point where they have to be vulnerable because they have to ask you for help. And at that point, that's your moment to be really good to them and
Right.
and fix the
And
situation. Not fix it all the way, but at least get there. And it's not about me. I don't care that you're mad at me because they're not really mad at me. It's about you. I need to get to understand what is going on so that I can help you.
it's such a vulnerable thing going to the ER. And I bet that I'm just asking, is there times when the patient is not honest with you and you can tell because it doesn't, what they're telling you doesn't match up to their symptoms? And
Yeah,
that maybe what
especially
happened is embarrassing or vulnerable in some way. So they don't want to admit what actually happened.
yeah. I mean, drugs, alcohol, STDs kind of thing, and then a lot of women being battered
Mm.
uh, and being hurt. Coming in with a black eye and saying that like I don't know,
They fell, they ran into the
there's some
stairwell
sort
or
of rape
whatever. Yeah,
report,
yeah.
I've heard, and like the thing popped up in my face, and you're like, there's no way that that did that to you, and you have to get to their health in terms of their physical health and make sure you can do that. And you can't necessarily probe too hard at first on the rest of it, but also there are questions, and you need to get to that point. But there are questions on the nurses intake that are universal now. One
Yes.
is some are you thinking about hurting yourself, or have you thought about hurting yourself? Is anyone else? Are you in danger of anything? Have you thought about hurting others? You ask these questions, and people, believe it or not, are like, "Oh my God, there's an opening for me to talk about this." They say it,
That's
right?
good.
And it's a
That's good
screen.
that that helps because I got asked those questions when I went to your ER, like, what was it, a couple months ago?
Yeah,
Yeah, and, I'm like, "I'm glad." I'm like, "No, I'm very happy, everything's fine, but I'm really glad you're asking me these questions." That's what I was
yeah,
thinking. That's
yeah.
funny. Okay, I'm gonna sum up the biggest thing that happens in the show, and then we're gonna talk about your most traumatic event. I think this is your most traumatic event, and when you were a doctor so far with the Boston Marathon bombing. In the show, there's a kid that has made a list of girls he wants to hurt. And the mom didn't know how to handle it. So she makes herself sick so that he takes her to the ER. And then she tells the doctors why she's there. And Dr. Robbie doesn't call the police and is trying to help the kid, but the kid takes off. And the mom's still there because she made herself sick. She's sick. And then another doctor calls the police. And then his sort of adopted son, not really adopted son, but sort of treats like a son. I think it was like a former relationships kid goes to Pitt Fest and takes his girlfriend to Pitt Fest. And so they're all talking about Pitt Fest, this big music festival. Then there's a mass shooting there. And they're like, is it this kid? Did Dr. Robbie mess up and um not call the police in time, and did this kid go and shoot them? It turns out later, spoiler alert, everybody, it wasn't the kid. And then it's just like sort of like normal mass shootings where the person killed themselves, and it's just like we don't even know why they did it, and it's just all horrific. But a bunch of terrible things happened to Dr. Robbie, and they take everybody out of the waiting room and they go to other hospitals so that they know these people are coming in, and other doctors come in. And this is around episode 10 or something, and it's a few episodes that we see this happen. And they have to change everything. They change all their systems so they can meet multiple people quickly. And they do wild things. Like at one point, they're giving their own blood to people because they're going to die and stuff like that, which I would hope that happens. It's not protocol, it's probably not legal, but they're trying to save their lives. And so at the end of this, Dr. Robbie loses everybody that is there for him emotionally. His top doctor he sent home, she had a terrible day. The son ends up the not per, the sort of son ends up hating him and yells at him, and he's lost everybody, and he loses it. He loses it. Also, he's struggling. It's the anniversary of the death of his mentor who died during COVID in
Yep.
the room he's sometimes in. So there's just like so much trauma. And a young medical student, the farmer kid, I love him so much. He comes in and he's like, "Well, you have to get it together. We need you. You have to do it." And it kind of makes him snap out of it, and he goes back to helping. And you see the trauma that first responders are seeing every day of work. And you're like, how do they do this job? Like, wow. And then I kept thinking to your day, because you shared with me and a few other people your day on the job during the Boston Marathon bombing. And it really helped me watching this not real show that's very realistic. It helped me understand your trauma. And I've heard you say this before, Tim, and I want to push back on it. You say you don't feel like your trauma is valid because other people have it so much worse, like your dad, who's a veteran, or Brian Zimmerman, or whatever. You're saying they have more trauma, and I'm like, your trauma is valid, Dr. Tim Peck, and everybody else's first responder trauma is very valid. And don't feel like just because other people might have it worse, you shouldn't let that in and deal with it. And part of Dr. Robbie's problems is he stuffs all his stuff inside. He stuffs it deep inside. He doesn't really pay attention to his home life or whatever. He's just like the best doctor ever, but his personal life's a little messed up from this trauma. So
Yeah.
I want to unpack your day, which I know is hard for you, and I'm thankful that you're vulnerable enough to share it. And then at the end, I want to talk about how do you deal with this trauma? Because we need to recognize our first responders are seeing this,
Yeah.
every day at work, most likely. Okay, so what do you have to say about that? This is an easy question, nothing hard
Yeah.
here.
No, I'll start with most days you see someone die
Wow.
when you're working in that type of emergency department, or even if you don't see them die, um, someone saw someone die that day, because maybe not on your shift, but shifts overlap and someone's dealing with it, or did yesterday, you know, um, as well as people have injuries or illnesses that make it so that they're going to die, even though they haven't yet. Um, and
Ah,
all these people have families, and that's part of your job to work with those families. And people also remind you of people that relationships that that you see. And that's just the death side and the really hard illnesses side. There's also just things like you have to tell people that they have cancer. That happens a lot. Like I did a CAT scan because he had belly pain, and then inside there were just tumors all over. Okay.
oh,
You have to and talk to that person and be direct and really give them the information they need to make those next steps that's right for them. People who have been raped, um, people who are struggling with, um, a pregnancy that they weren't expecting, people who have their first diagnosis of COPD or emphysema that we talked about, or congestive heart failure or diabetes. And like your entire life is about to change. You now need insulin every day. You
So
know,
there's every day you're delivering just horrific news, even if they're going to survive, their life's going to be so much harder.
yeah. And so I think of it as beautiful news, not horrific news. So how can I make this the most beautiful experience? That's the word I use and think about and try to design experiences around for people, is when they think back to that moment, they thought about how much they were respected, how much grace was there, that they were, the things that were important to them were addressed, that they felt in some way warmth or love even in that moment, whether that's from me or making sure that they got the right person bedside. You know, I have some bad news for you. Who is the person that you want on the phone with you when I deliver it, if anybody? Having that moment, to make sure that they have that person that supports them. So in some cases, that's impossible. It's too fast. Someone's dying in front of you, and what we call circling the drain sometimes in ED talk, ER doc. And you got to get to saving that person. You don't have time. You have seconds or minutes. But even then, sometimes, like this happened earlier in my career. I remember very much intubating someone, which is when you paralyze and put them to sleep and then put a tube into their mouth, and that's emergent.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in the show.
Yeah, that's the most critical thing that we do often. And sometimes you do it multiple times a day. And the medicine we were using to put them to sleep was not working for them. They were immune to it, essentially. And so they were awake, paralyzed.
Oh, I've heard of that happening.
With a tube in their mouth. And they're awake. They can hear you, but they can't. They're locked in. They can't do anything. And so I just remember, saying what needs to be done, but then leaning down next to the person and just talking to them slowly, telling them what's going on, saying that you're all right. You're going to be safe. We're going to put you to sleep with a different medicine right now. It's so loud. It's so crazy because we're intubating them because they were having, I don't remember what was wrong with this person, but a heart attack or something. And just talking and being slow with them in that moment and giving that 20 seconds that's needed while the nurse is running to get the other medicine that would work for this person.
You're making me tear up because I had this happen to me when I had my twin birth, and I almost died, and I had the doctors there step in and say the most amazing things to me to keep me going. And I never felt worse in my life. So it's like, yeah, I've had this happen to me before, where
So
they
that
say the best thing that they could possibly say to get me through that situation. Yeah.
I want that person, when they remember that moment, to think about how terrifying it was for them, but also think about how beautiful it was that humanity.
Because that's how I see it now. I'm just so grateful that
Right.
this doctor, she was from Croatia, like did this for me. She was the anesthesiologist, I think. Yeah.
Or you can
Yeah.
just ignore it and do the medicine part, and that person has a terrible experience and a terrible fear, and they're traumatic for the rest of their life.
She knew what was going to happen to me, so she was there ready to. Yeah. This is really beautiful, and that's how the show is too. The show, especially Dr. Robbie, he's modeling it a lot. He's like, this is their worst moment. There's a son, a good kid, a college student that takes medicine to help him study that's laced with fentanyl, and he ends up dying. And it's multiple episodes because the parents won't accept it, so he keeps running tests because he's brain dead. And he eventually is an organ donor, and the parents eventually let him be used, and they do like a walk where they all come out, all the workers come out and like watch them walk and take the son that's brain dead and get him into a vehicle so that they can do organ donation. And I found out that's a real thing. Like that was pretty amazing.
One story to talk about, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that we only have about 6 minutes here, and we can do Boston Marathon in detail some other time. But
That's fine. Sure. Because I think we could do a whole episode on that.
But one thing is just people have heart attacks, right? And that's a life-changing moment. And sometimes those heart attacks are happening and they need to immediately go to the catheterization lab to get their artery opened or they're going to die. And they might die anyway. And so in that moment, as a doctor, I know exactly what's going to happen in that moment. It's almost algorithmic of what they need, the medicines they need, the people that need to go run to the bedside, whatever. And so I put a hand on their shoulder. I say, look at me right now. You are in the safest place you can possibly be for this happening. This is a bad thing that's happening. It's scary. It's dangerous, but there's no place in the world you'd rather be than right here.
Right.
What's about to happen is that a nurse is about to take your arm, and then they take it and put an IV in it. Still look at me. And someone else is going to take your other arm. In just moments, a cardiologist is going to be by the bedside, and they're going to ask you every question that I've already asked you, maybe a couple others. And you just need to do your job right now, which is just talk to them so we can get you to the safest place, the next step in the safest place, which is into this cardiac catheterization lab where they're going to put a wire in you. It'll go to your heart. And what we're going to try to do is save your life. And so like giving them the information and trying to close it out to here, even though all this stuff is happening, and letting them know what that next step is. It's a weird word, but one of my favorite parts of medicine.
Yeah, because you're doing what that person needs the most, so you're really able to help them at their hardest moment in life. And it is amazing. Like, yeah, I think everybody that's met with somebody that's doing this job, that's doing the best at their job, it is making their life better. So I get why you say that. It just
So
makes me understand you better, Tim, as a person. You're very sympathetic. You're very not judgmental. You just care and you understand people better. Like, you know how our culture is judgmental about so many things. I don't ever see that from you. I don't ever see the judgmentalness. It's just the how do I help these people in this situation? I'm not going to come up being like, oh, if only you would have changed this, if you wouldn't have made this bad decision. You never do that. You're like,
you
how do I
just
help this person now?
can
And
I
I
adjust
think that
that?
that helps. Yeah.
Just that. We talked about bias. Everyone has bias. And that bias enters your brain. You have a physical reaction to it.
So you're saying you still have the bias. You're just doing the second thing.
I still have it. You just know it. You've felt it so many times. You've realized it. You've had skills to overcome that. I still have it. I still have it. And people remind you of an experience you had with a bad experience with, the things happen. And that's in the emergency department, but that's in life too. And so try to use that skill to say, okay, let me get over this. Let me listen for a moment, slow things down so we can go fast. Just Boston Marathon bombing for 3 minutes. Obviously, it was a life-changing moment for me, life-changing moment for, dozens of people who were hurt that day, killed that day.
What date? What year was this?
2013. And April 15, 2013. And so I just started a chief residency. It was the first day of chief residency. Actually, I was just elected chief resident.
Were you very excited? Like, this is exciting. It's my first
Excited.
day.
Let me tell you something. Yeah, I was so excited. People were texting me as I was going into work, like, good, like, congratulations, go for it. This is a huge day for you. That's the mood that was there. And I get in, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And such an honor. You're chosen, you're elected by a few levels. One, the nurses kind of narrow down the pool to say, okay, we don't want some certain people, or we do want certain people on that.
I like that. Yeah, that's great.
And then your peers, and then your every attending doctor who's there, and then there's like a committee at the end. And so it's an honor. And it's kind of a culmination of all the work that you've done to get to that moment.
Right. Yeah. Think about how many years of training and experience that you had to have to get to that place. Yeah, that's a lot. So I'm sure it's already an emotional, overwhelming day in a positive way.
Yeah. And so it's 2:00 when I walked into my shift, and it was 2:53 when the Boston Marathon bombings happened.
Wow.
You don't have windows in the emergency department. There's no TV on that you're watching. There's no radio, right? You just know that there's a mass casualty incident out there.
How did you get alerted of it? Because I'm wondering if it's the same
over the radios that are coming in. And EMS saying, we have patient for you. We have
Yeah,
patient for
that's
you.
what happened down there too. Yeah.
And we had 23 people come into our emergency department that day, and everybody's lives were saved. And a lot of people came in unconscious and bleeding and had to go straight to surgery. People had limbs that were severed. People had eyes that were, because it was BBs in a pressure cooker that went into people. And the thing about the
Wasn't
BB
it nails too?
and some nail, yeah, but it was BBs is all I saw. And maybe there were nails, but
Oh, okay, never mind. I gotta mix up.
what I remember is BBs. And the thing about the BBs is that, I've never seen multiple BBs go into a body before. And so a lot of people came in with just these dots on their body. And I didn't understand what it was or what was going on, right? Why were they in so much? It's just dots of it's not something I've ever seen. I remember the first person we did a cross table x-ray on to see what was kind of going on. And you see all these BBs in this person and you're like, oh my God, that's what this is. And it changes your entire algorithms in your head of what do I have to do for this person? And apply that. And that was a big moment. Another big moment. And again, we only have a couple minutes here, or 1 minute even. And so I'll say another big moment is the JFK library in Boston was on fire that day. And nothing to do with the Boston Marathon bombings. I don't know what's happening in the emergency department, outside the emergency department. I just know these patients are coming in. We're treating one after another, and in parallel. And all of a sudden over the radio, it comes in that there's a fire at the JFK library, and I'm like, my instinct was, oh my God, we're at war. Right? We're at war. This isn't going to end. I'm just here. I'm going to have to do this. For who knows how long as people come in. It turned out it wasn't a big deal.
It wasn't related. Yeah.
And
did other people think that too? They were like, what is happening?
Yeah, I remember after it, we went to a bar in Coolidge Corner, which is near the hospital, I remember. And we were just sitting there and was kind of talking about it and seeing the news for the first time, on the TV, and it wasn't on. And I just remember, the waiter and the bartender just gave us drinks the whole time, and we didn't talk to them. They didn't even ask for our order. We just sat. No one paid for anything. The place closed, and we were still there. We were just in shock,
Yeah.
And that was a place we would go after shifts all the time. And so it was just habit. And then that night, I got home. It was late at night, 12, 1, 2 in the morning, and I'm sitting there in bed and I can't go to sleep. And I did this weird thing, which I tell people, and I've started to make some sense of it, where there's no one awake to talk to, there's no one it's 4 a.m. And I emailed Jad Abumrad, who is a podcast person for something called Radio Lab, which is my favorite podcast. And this is 20 years ago, or however 18 years
12 years ago.
12 years ago. And he is this podcast that I really loved, and it really, what it does is makes a sense of the world through science, and understands different issues, and does sense making is what it does.
This makes sense. You like this podcast.
And I didn't really make that connection at the time. And I just wrote him I'm here alone at night, just had this experience. I don't know why I'm writing you, but I just wanted to reach out to a familiar voice, because I would listen to this all the time. I would listen to it as I go to sleep, repeats as I go to sleep, right? This voice is all around me. And then he contacted me back. We had somewhat of a relationship there. I went and met him when he came to Boston on a tour.
Oh, that's nice.
Etc. And his co-host. And it wasn't until recently that I understood that that was reaching out to someone who made so many sense of complex things in my life is what I was trying to do.
So
But
this was a way of you healing your trauma. You didn't know to call it that, but your
yeah,
body had enough sense that you needed that, so you did that. That's amazing.
yeah, that's not a story to tell a lot of people. So I just told the internet. So it's interesting.
Well, we need to have more episodes about this, and I want to do a Dr. Tim about trauma because a lot of us are struggling right now, especially with what's happening in our government, especially with SNAP benefits. There's and we can't fix it all. You're trying, I'm trying, we're doing a tiny little part of this complicated, hard world. And I just want to help people. And I know you just want to help people. That's why I became a teacher. That's why you became a doctor, one of the reasons. And right now, people are legit traumatized by the things that are happening in the country. What do we do? And I think this is one. You guys can comment on this show and I'll read it and respond to you. You can share this episode with a friend or just talk about what you heard with somebody that cares about you. But long story short, you deserve to get care. What's inside, you deserve to get it out. Try to make sense of it, like you're saying. But that's important and we should all take the time to do it because if we don't recognize what just happened to us and deal with it, then we start doing negative things. We start, maybe drinking or taking some substance to make us forget, or we take it out on other people, or we're very angry and vengeful. And, negative things come out when you don't handle this stuff. So, yeah, thank you to the first responders. Thank you, Dr. Tim Peck, for being a doctor. Thank you for running for Congress. Thank you for doing Project Next with me and being my friend. Watching the Pitt really helped me understand you, and that was really neat. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this show. Um, and to all the people that do those jobs, we've gone into it before how hard it is to do this job with our broken system. Even though it's broken, the people are still doing it. They're still giving good care. They're still saving lives. It could be better, but they're doing what has to be done, and that's heroic. Um, so just thank you. Tim, any last thoughts before we leave? I know we both have a busy day today.
Yeah. Most likely, SNAP benefits are going to go away in 2 days. And if you need food, I don't know if I can be the one to give it to you. I don't know if Sarah's the one who could give it to you. We can't give it to everybody. But if you need food and you don't have resources and you're scared and you don't know what to do, contact us and we'll try to help you. I can't guarantee that we will.
Yeah, we
Uh,
know local food banks. We know locally, Harrison County, Washington County, Floyd, you probably know Clark, you probably know. So yeah, we can try to help. And if you have extra food, this is a good time to, or if you can buy some extra stuff or find
yeah.
out from your friends who's struggling.
The next
It,
2 days is the day to kind of clean out your cupboard and bring it to food bags. Please do.
yeah,
Please, we're
yeah.
gonna need it. We're gonna need it.
You and I are going to do a show with Washington County Warming Station. I did one last week, a quick one with them, and we're going to do a little bit longer one with them. So that's a good resource if you're in the Salem, Washington County, Indiana area. But also, we'll give tips. I want to do another show too, where we can just let people know what to do to help if you need help, if you can help.
Yeah.
It's a
I
little overwhelming. Aren't you overwhelmed with it because we know it's coming and it's so sad and we can't
trying
save
to
everybody?
take it one step at a time. And the charity that my wife and I give to regularly, like the number one charity is Dairy Care, the food bank in Louisville in southern Indiana, and that's where we give our money. And I'm I'm very happy that we've been giving resources to there. So it's an organization I trust. So if you're looking for an organization to help people, that's one to help. So it's not
Yeah.
just food, but give money to the organizations that already do this work.
Yeah. 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 Whew. Yeah. You guys take care. And thank you so much for those of you that are watching. And thank you, Tim. I had to convince you. You're like, I don't have to watch the show, do I? I was like, no. Oh my gosh. Last question. What's a bougie? They always said they needed a bougie. They're out of bougies. What's a bougie? It seems like some tube or something. What is it?
A gum elastic bougie is the actual word. It's a thing that I always tape to the wall when I am doing an intubation, when putting in the thing, because what it is it's like a a long, uh, hard rubber stick with a little crook at the end. And what you can do if it's a really hard airway and you can't get the tube through or figure it out, you can use the bougie to put it through the narrow place. You got it into where you need to go, and then you take the tube and put it over the bougie, pull the bougie out, and now your tube is where it needs to be. And so that's what a
Yeah,
bougie.
because they're doing the airway thing a lot, and they ran out of those during the mass shooting thing. And I knew it was something to do with airway, and I was like, oh, I've got to find it. That was my one medical question I had because they said it a lot. They said that word a lot.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think you would like the show, honestly, if you could handle it. But it
You know
does
what? Made
sound
me,
so similar with
you know
what
what
you're
made me
telling
think
me.
that I would watch it is that when you said it doesn't have music, I was like, really? I would watch. Now I'll watch that because
I loved that there was no music.
yeah,
It was so, and I loved that it's the second it ended, the show ended, it was the next minute of the next show, and you'd see the same patients. Sometimes you'd see them half of the show of the season was you'd see the same patients. Like that was fantastic. And
yeah.
I just it was a beautiful show. I'm not a huge medical doctor show, but I can understand why I wanted to watch it. And I recommend it. Second season's coming back in January. Did you know they're suing, I think it's Michael Crichton's widow is suing the show saying it was ripped off from ER. So
Because
there's
it's
some
about an
drama.
ER. Yeah.
There's some behind the scenes drama.
Uh,
So
well,
that's kind of funny.
all right. Well, Sarah, I'll see you later today.
Yeah,
Actually,
I'll see you later today. Thanks, everybody. Love you guys.
last message. If you are someone who gives money, give it to someone who's going to feed someone these next few days. Uh, if you have food in your pantry that you want to give away, give it away, please. And then call your congressperson. This
Yeah.
doesn't this doesn't have to happen. This doesn't have to happen. Call your
No.
congressperson.
This
Tell them.
is so unnecessary. It's so painful. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, it doesn't have to happen. We could elect somebody better to Congress. Who would that be? I don't know. All right, you guys, have a great day. Bye, everybody. I'll be back on tomorrow at noon for the Christopher show. Tim's nephew. What does he see in the Republican world versus what I see in the Democrat world? We're doing that again. That's been a lot of fun and sort of mind-boggling. All right, bye, everybody.
All right. Thanks. Bye.